Thank you all for being here. As Shamik introduced, my name is Kenny White, founder and chief economist of Shell Protocol, and I spent the last 3 years designing and building automated market makers, or AMMs. The most recent AMM that we built, and the one I'm the most proud of, is called Proteus. And this basically, you can think of it as an AMM engine that lets you replicate any bonding curve. And lets you do a lot of cool stuff like have concentrated liquidity but fungible LP tokens. But I'm not here to talk about Proteus, although I will mention it later on in the talk. I'm here because I have a confession to make, and that is that AMMs are fundamentally broken, in my opinion. And this is something that I've kind of come to the conclusion a few weeks ago, and it was really, speaking of group therapy, this is going to be somewhat a group therapy session for me. And I don't think I'm the first person to say that AMMs are broken, but I might be the first person who builds AMMs for a living to admit it publicly. But before I talk about that, I think it's worth emphasizing how important AMMs are to the DeFi and Web3 ecosystem. So I think of AMMs as like the arteries for DeFi. And basically 85% of all DEX volume goes through AMMs. Like Uniswap, the largest one, maybe you've heard of it, often has like higher trade volume than Coinbase. And I think it's pretty clear that without this liquidity, DeFi as we know it would cease to exist. Like if you can't trade tokens, you don't really have a financial system. And the problem with AMMs, simply put, is that they lose money for their liquidity providers. Now, what I mean by lose money, I think I need to kind of be clear. You have two options, right? Option A is you put your tokens into an AMM. Option B is you just hold on to those tokens in your wallet and you don't trade them. It turns out that on average, empirically, option B does a lot better than option A. In other words, you make more money if you don't provide liquidity in AMMs. And the nice thing about DeFi, speaking of Henry's talk, transparency. So it's very easy to go through and look at the historical performance of AMMs, and we now have enough data to start drawing some conclusions. So in the last few months, a lot of analyses have come out. A lot of them, these two that I'm referencing are about Uniswap. I don't want to pick on Uniswap. It's just that they're the biggest ones, and that's where a lot of the research is being done. But basically, like one study showed that Uniswap v3 LPs on average had a minus 30% ROI. So that means for every dollar you put in as an LP, you'd lose 30 cents relative to just hodling tokens. Another study also found that in the USDC ETH pool, which is kind of one of the major pools in Uniswap, they had about $100 million of toxic order flow. I think for a 10-minute talk, I can't go into exactly what that means in a technical sense, but let's just say that if you're a professional market making desk in TradFi and you were posting those kind of numbers, you would not stay in business for very long. So why are AMMs losing money? Well, basically, you have this static smart contract that's going up against a professional team of automated market making, professional team of arbitrage traders and arbitrage bots. And to illustrate the points, I put up some sort of hypothetical numbers here. And so let's assume we live in a world where ETH is trading at $2,000. And there's three possible versions of the future. One, ETH goes down to 1,500. The second, price of ETH stays the same at 2,000. And then the third, ETH goes up to 2,500. So basically, the best LP can do is scenario 2, which is they don't make money, they don't lose money, and neither does the arbitrage trader. But if the price of ETH goes up or down, basically the LP loses and the arbitrator gains. How does this work? Well, pretty much the arbitrator buys low and sells high, and the LP buys high and sells low. In the case of ETH going down, so what the arbitrator will do is he'll buy ETH for 1,500 on the spot market, and then he'll trade with the AMM and get 2,000 for it. So pretty much the AMM is spending $2,000 to get something that's worth 1,500. And so that ends up basically being a loss. And the same thing happens when ETH is 2,500, but in the opposite direction, where the LP will buy from the protocol, or buy from the AMM and then sell on the spot. The arbitrator buys from the protocol and sells on the spot. This graph over here basically shows a continuous model for the discrete model that I had in the previous slide. And as you can see, like, the best you can do as an LP is break even when the price doesn't change. And the more the price changes, the more you lose. And the y-axis, which is profits, is often called like impermanent loss, in case you're wondering. I don't know if that's really the best term, but that's the term people are familiar with. And so just to reiterate, I think because of this, DeFi is in an existential crisis. It's only a matter of time before capital leaves these AMMs, because, I mean, why would you lose 30% when you, being in an AMM, when you can gain like 5% just staking ETH? Like, really, if you're going to take on more risk, you need a higher return. And without liquidity from AMMs, you know, they're really, like I said, there won't be a DeFi. Fortunately, there's a solution, I think. So before I get into the solution, I think it's helpful to review options. So what is an option? Well, in this case, again, let's assume that the price of ETH is $2,000. And Alice agrees to give Bob the right, i.e. the option, to buy or sell ETH at $2,000 from her. For that right, Bob has to pay Alice a $300 premium. This option premium is really similar to like an insurance premium. So if anyone's ever bought car, auto insurance or home insurance, it's the same idea, where if nothing bad happens to you, the insurance company wins because they collected the premium and they don't have to pay any money. But say your car gets totaled, you win because you get a free car, and the insurance company loses because they have to basically buy you a car. So options are the same idea, but like price insurance. So if the price of ETH in this example goes up or down, Bob gets to buy low and sell high at Alice's expense. And so you'll notice this is very similar to the LP situation, except Alice actually has a chance of making money if the price doesn't change. And even if the price does change, she ends up making more money, or ends up losing less money than she would have had she not sold it for a premium. So getting back to like the problem with AMMs and why they lose money is basically they're selling free options. So pretty much anyone has the right to go and exercise this option against this implicit option that LPs are selling or giving away, right? Because when you're an LP, you're committing to buying or selling tokens at the price according to like the AMMs like bonding curve. And as we saw in the previous slide, options are valuable. Giving away something that has value for free, in my opinion, is a poor way to make money. If only there were a way to fix this. So I think, to me, the solution is fairly clear, which is instead of letting anyone trade with the pool, which is the old model, have a new model where only people who have paid a premium have the right to trade against the pool. So that way, being an LP goes from giving away free options to actually selling options. So LPs will have a chance to make money if the price doesn't move too much. And if the price moves a lot, then the traders make money, just like a standard option. To illustrate the point, I have put this back up. It's basically the same as the options chart, but I replaced Alice, the option seller, with LPs, and Bob, the option buyer, with arbitrators. And so once again, now LPs have a chance of turning a profit. Here is the continuous model again, except with the premium put in. And so you can see, I don't know if this pointer is going to work, but you can see like as long as the price stays within this boundary, LPs make money. And if the price goes out of that boundary, then arbitrators make money. So what are the consequences of this model? Well, AMMs now have a chance at being profitable, which I think will unlock even more liquidity. Like in some ways, it's kind of amazing that there's as much liquidity as there are in AMMs right now, given how poorly they've performed. And I think, imagine if they actually made money, how much more liquidity we could attract to the ecosystem. Because you gotta assume there's a lot of investors who would like to provide liquidity, but just crunched the numbers and thought it was a bad idea. So there's probably a lot of liquidity sitting on the sidelines. The second thing that I think is really cool and exciting is that we've just invented like a new options primitive right here, right now, us together. And what does this options primitive have? It has some really cool features that it inherits from automated market makers. The first one is that it's perpetual. So AMMs never turn off, they just keep going. So an options primitive built in this way would also be a perpetual option. Additionally, AMMs can function without oracles. This options market can function without an oracle. And I mentioned Proteus before, which allows you to create any type of bonding curve you want. So it turns out that like the shape of the bonding curve determines the options payout. And so if you can create any type of bonding curve you want, that means you can also, if you plug that in to this new options model, you can create any type of options payout you want just by tweaking parameters, which I don't know, that's what gets me excited, because that just seems like a really cool thing to play around with as a AMM architect. In terms of next steps, currently we're working on an MVP for this, and once it's ready, we're gonna put it out there and test it side by side against like the old style of AMM. So we'll have one AMM that just charges a swap fee, like the standard one, and then we'll have another AMM that's like pretty much identical, except instead of a swap fee, it'll charge a premium. And we're gonna let it run for about 30 days, and after that, we're gonna see which one made more money for LPs. I think it'll be a very good experiment. My background is in like economics, and one of the reasons why I got into this field in the first place is that it's really, really hard to do like actual experiments in econ. And so that's why so much of econ is like pseudoscience and garbage. Not all of it, but a lot of it is. And I think it's because it can't do experiments. So the economist in me is really excited about this experiment. And if the experiment works and and we're right, and the new model outperforms the old model, you know, we could be entering into like a new phase, a new era for DeFi. And the last thing I wanted to say is, you know, with every crisis, there's an opportunity. And so this current crisis with AMMs in DeFi, and not just AMMs in DeFi in particular, but just in general, the crisis in Web3 in this bear market, I think is a great opportunity for us to really, you know, focus on innovation. And I think that the stuff that's going to come out of this next cycle is going to be really, truly transformational. And it's just really exciting to be here in a room with a whole bunch of people trying to push the envelope. And thank you guys.